George Zimmerman trial, stakes never higher. Trayvon Martin's parents now could be taking the stand to testify as early as today. And ABC's Matt Gutman is in Sanford, Florida, with the very latest on the prosecution's real struggle now, Matt, to make their case. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Josh. That's right. For the past few days, the prosecution's case has been limping along. There is no smoking gun. The witnesses it's put on the stand have turned against it, and the only person who knows exactly what happened that night, George Zimmerman, is not likely to talk. So the prosecution has been hammering away where it can George Zimmerman's credibility.
Do solemnly swear.
After 7 days of testimony, the prosecution came out swinging.
I'm hitting you, correct?
Bringing in this medical examiner to dismantle Zimmerman's claim that he was in a life-and-death struggle with 17-year-old Trayvon Martin.
How would you classify the injuries to the defendant's head?
They were not life-threatening. They were very insignificant.
And earlier, the prosecution slugging away at Zimmerman's credibility, using his own words muttered in this call to police that night against him. On the stand, Chris Serino, the lead investigator who first recommended manslaughter charges against Zimmerman, weighing in, bolstering the prosecution's point.
In your opinion, calling somebody, reference them as, pardon my language, punks?
That is ill will and spite.
It is?
Yes.
The wording there, critical, as prosecutors told jurors in their opening statement, demonstrating ill will or spite is critical for a second-degree murder conviction. After court, Zimmerman's lead attorney, Mark O'Mara, whose client claims he shot Martin in self-defense, says his client's case is undented.
Self-defense doesn't require any injuries whatsoever. Self-defense is, do you have a reasonable fear of future bodily injury? But under the statute, you don't have to get hit once for self-defense to exist.
But the prosecution attacking Zimmerman's team outside the courtroom as well. At issue, this photograph, posted on Instagram by defense attorney Don West's daughter. It contains the caption, "We beat stupidity celebration cones." The prosecution going after the defense late Tuesday, saying the caption referred to Trayvon Martin's friend, Rachel Jantel, who was grilled on the stand by West last week.
I don't read curses.
West apologized for the post, but the prosecution filed a motion stating it wants to ensure that witnesses and court proceedings are treated with respect.
Now, that's important because we could see as many as 8 more witnesses take the stand. And it's expected the prosecution will try to end this case in the way it started, by tugging at the heartstrings of those 6 female jurors. Look to see Trayvon Martin's mother, who's been sitting in court day after day, be the last person to take the stand. Josh.
All right, and Matt Gutman there in Sanford. We want to turn now to ABC's chief legal affairs anchor, Dan Abrams, also reporting on the trial in Sanford. And Dan, an interesting start to Tuesday's proceedings when the judge struck down something that a prosecution witness had said, but you don't necessarily believe it actually helped the prosecution even when it was done.
Well, first of all, think about the fact that prosecutors are asking that a statement from one of their own witnesses be struck. But beyond that, you have the fact that you can't unring the bell, right? The jurors have heard this. So the first thing they hear when they arrive that morning is, don't pay attention to that really, really important big thing that was said at the end of court yesterday. That in and of itself is a problem for prosecutors. So the prosecutors had to make a tough decision. Do we make a big deal about this and ask that it be stricken as they did, or do we hope it just fades into the background? I think they realized it was so important and so big that they would still be willing to have the judge give that instruction and highlight it again.
And Dan, the prosecution once again spending a lot of time trying to highlight inconsistencies in Zimmerman's various accounts. How well did it do?
It's their best argument here. I mean, their best case is George Zimmerman's story doesn't make sense. The problem is the inconsistencies they're talking about are relatively minor compared to the consistency of the major issues in George Zimmerman's account. And I think that is the reason we will not see George Zimmerman take the stand, because his team believes that those inconsistencies that have been brought up again and again in court are just not that big a deal.
And yet, we do expect to hear from Trayvon Martin's parents. Both could perhaps be testifying as early as today. Certainly an emotional day. Dan Abrams, thanks for your time this morning.